Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Anachrony. In Anachrony, we are able to see the future coming. There is a large explosion coming. A meteorite is going to hit the world and explode everything. We know that's coming because time travel exists. People have come back from the future and told us that that event is about to happen. We need to get ready for it. This is a worker placement game where the winner is the person with the most points at the end. In each turn, you will need to do a number of phases. I'm going to actually start this with phase 3, which is the power up phase. Phase 1 has already been done for the first turn in the actual setup of the game. Phase 2 doesn't happen on the first turn, the paradox phase. I'll explain that after I get through the other ones. So I'm going to start on phase 3, which is the power up. Now, the winner of the game is, like most Euros, the person with the most points at the end of the game. Those points are awarded by picking up points through the game in the form of these little chips. They're also awarded for people who have the most of whatever is on these cards. I'm not going to go through explaining what all these cards mean. They're in the rulebook. There's too many cards to explain, but in essence, this one means the person who has the most water at the end of the game gets 3 more points. Simple as that. Points are also awarded for escaping before the end of the game, which is on the back of this board, which this board won't turn over until that event happens. When this board turns over, you will need to get a suit to here. I'll explain what exosuits are in a second, and escape with one of your employees. And there are bonus points marked on each individual path card. So you're not allowed to escape until you fulfill, in this case, have 3 of the red buildings. The red buildings are those ones just there. And that'll give you 5 points. And once you've got that, you then need, in this particular case, you'll need combinations of research, which are those little cards just there, and scientists, which are the workers that have that little symbol on the top of them. The first thing you'll need to do before you start playing is each faction, once you've chosen your faction, will need to select one of their 2 cards. There are bonuses or special rules for each of the faction leaders on the bottom of the cards. So I'm just going to go with this one for the moment. Once again, you can look up what these all mean at the back of the rulebook, but in essence, this allows me to pay a water to manipulate the dice for the research. Before I hit the gameplay, the other things I'd like to point out is I am a Kickstart backer, which means I'm using these funky minis instead of these little cards. So when you see the minis, you may be looking at these cards in your own game. And those cubes up there are chits in the base game. Other than that, I'm not sure what is and is not extensions of the Kickstarter, but I'm sure you'll notice little differences and be able to adjust accordingly. So the first thing we do, which is phase 3, is we power up our exosuits. You'll notice there are 6 spaces down here on the board. I have 6 exosuits that I can power up. Powering up an exosuit is literally taking them from the reserve and placing them on my board. Now you'll notice those 3 that I placed have nothing marked in the middle of the hex. In fact, if you look across the board, you'll notice some hexes have nothing marked in the middle of them, some have other symbols, so in this case, water. If you were to place a exosuit on any of those hexes that have a picture of water, you will need to pay that amount of water. Other things to watch out for on the board is anything next to the symbol is what you'll receive by putting an exosuit there. You'll notice these other 3 hexes have these little pictures. They are referring to these power-up tokens. In order for me to place an exosuit on any of those 3 spots, I will need to pay a power token per spot. So for the moment, I'll leave them blank. Once you've powered up your exosuits, any of the 6 spaces that have not been used, you will receive a water for it. So I'll receive 3 more water. The light blue are worth 1, the dark blue are worth 3. Each player in turn from the start player will do that exact maneuver. Between 0 and 6 of your exosuits can be powered up at the beginning of your turn. Once that's gone around, in player order, the first player is the player with their banner in the middle of the table here, who basically holds the control of the capital. Each player will place one exosuit plus anything that they can do. So in essence, this is the capital board. This is your own city board. You can do anything you like in your city board at any time during your turn. The capital board, however, you need to take an exosuit because you'll get fried with nuclear waste or something to that effect when you move from your city to the capital. So you need to put workers into your exosuits. Once you place a worker into your exosuit, you can then move it to any of the hexes on the capital board. Spend the water if you're taking one of the water hexes, or just receive the benefit of placing your exosuit there. What do each of the hexes do, I hear you asking? This set of hexes allows you to recruit workers. The workers that you can recruit are all listed there, and they will change each turn according to that card. Once you recruit the worker, they will go straight to your city board on the awake side. There's an awake side and a sleep side. I'll explain more about that later. So any worker that you employ or recruit at the beginning of your turn will be available for you to use in future turns. If you go here, you go to the mine, and you can collect one of the 3 resource tokens that is connected to the particular hex you're taking, plus one of the other ones that's listed down the left-hand side. Once again, these resource tokens are in accordance with this card and will change once we get through the current era. This resource here is relatively rare at the beginning of the game, but will always be there once the event has happened. You will need them to be able to build these particular buildings. If you send a exosuit to the building space, the architect space, you are allowed to build one of the visible buildings in your city. The cost of the building is listed on the left-hand side of your city board and will need to be selected. So for example, if I wish to build this particular building, which is one of the blue buildings, that's these guys, I look to see what this resource is. I will need 2 of the grey resources. I'm not going to need them to use the names of the resources through these Gamesplanations because it gets too confusing. There's grey, green, yellow, and purple. So I would take 2 of the grey resources, place them there, and I can then build that building. From this point on, whenever I put an employee into, or a worker into that building, I will get, in this particular case, 3 water. The other thing you can do while on that particular hex is you could build the current super project. I'll go into super projects in the second video. Another thing you can do on the city capital is you can research. When you research, you're rolling these 2 dice. One of them shows you different shaped research tokens. So there's triangle, square, circle. And the other one shows you various symbols of the type of research. So what you're allowed to do is you set one of them and then you roll the other one. My particular skill on this card actually allows me to set both of them to whatever I wish, and then just root through and take the particular one that I have set. That's the limited spaces. There are 2 spaces up here. If I go there, it's going to cost me 2 water. I get to choose any of these 3 actions to do, and I also will take control of the capital by being there, and that is how you become the first player in the next era. There's 2 other spaces on the capital. There's one here. If you go there, you just gain 3 water. Notice the larger hexes can be filled by as many exosuits as you want, so you're not limiting other people by taking that. And the same down here, this is trading with the nomads, and there's arrows so I can trade water for power-up tokens, or I can trade power-up tokens for the purple resource cubes, or purple resource cube, 1 purple resource cube for 2 of the other types of cube, or 2 cubes for 3 water, going around that particular circle according to the icons. That's the capital. The only other things that we've got to deal with down in our own cities is this section here. I was talking about awake and asleep earlier. I think they call it motivated and unmotivated. Once you've sent workers out, so for example, if I sent these 3 guys out into the capital, you will notice that some of these have little symbols above them saying that various types of worker can and can't do various things. So if you go up here to the water, scientists will get 1 extra water. Here, the administrators are allowed to go an extra step, so they could trade 3 water for 1 purple resource cube. Coming along here on the research, scientists are the only ones who are able to go to that particular space. So a scientist exosuit can go there and do the research. Scientists are not allowed to employ other people, but they can do each of the other 2 things. On this one, if you happen to send an engineer, which is that guy there, if you happen to send an engineer here, you're not able to select the genius. This is the genius. Genius is a wildcard type of worker and can stand in for any other type of worker. But an administrator can select any of the different types of workers. On this one, scientists can use this one. If you happen to send an engineer here, however, you're able to build your building for 1 less grey resource cube. So the building I was talking about earlier that takes 2 resource cubes would only take the 1. And if you send an engineer to the mine, he will return still motivated. So he won't go to that asleep side or non-motivated side when he comes back. So once you've sent all of your guys out to do their stuff, you do their things, when you bring them back in phase 6, it's called the cleanup phase, you'll bring them back, and each of these guys, unless they've got a little picture of an eye with an arrow next to it, will go to the non-motivated side. In order to motivate them again, you have 2 options. You can either put a worker from the motivated side onto the non-motivated side to wake up every worker that's on this side. It doesn't matter how many are there, but it will cost you the number of water tokens that are underneath this particular marker, which in this case is 5. So I could send a guy there, spend 5 water and wake him up. Once I do that, I then move that marker to the right. Notice that the further to the right I am, the more water it's going to cost. However, that's worth more points to me the further down that track I go. Once you get up to 6, if you continue to keep bringing them across that way, you just get 2 points every time, rather than having an infinite track. And it will only ever cost you a maximum of 7 water. Also noticing if I use an administrator to bring them back to the motivated side, he won't go unmotivated because he's worked. He will just become motivated again. The other option I have is to force your workers back awake. You can take that action once. All the workers on this side, just like before, will go to the motivated side, but this goes 1 step to the left and is worth negative points when you get to the end of the game. That will just about do us for part 1. I'll talk about time travel and anomalies in the second video. The only other thing to do is the cleanup, which is phase 6, and then preparation. So cleanup is taking all of your exosuits back and putting your workers on the appropriate sides. If you've got any special skills that happen in the cleanup phase, then obviously do them now. You'll then move everyone's tokens onto the next era. That's showing where the focus is, and then turn over new cards here and fill up the various spaces on the board for those particular cards. I've gone on far too long on part 1, so I'll leave that there and I'll see you in part 2. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them down below. If you have any games that you wish to be gamesplained, please send me an email at thegamesplained@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram to see what games I've been playing. And until next time, enjoy gaming.